Billionaire enters a 90-day contract marriage, discovers she's a virgin, falls madly in love. The Chicago skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Jude Stevens' penthouse office. 40 stories above the city, he stood with his back to the view, his attention fixed on the 3 board members seated across from him. "The Nakamura merger is practically guaranteed," said Victoria Reed, tapping her manicured nails against the glass conference table. "But there's one concern they've expressed repeatedly." Jude raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "Your personal life, Mr. Stephen," interjected Richard Harmon, the oldest board member, or rather the lack thereof. Jude's jaw tightened. "My personal life has nothing to do with my ability to run this company." "In most cases I'd agree," Victoria said, leaning forward. "But the Nakamuras are traditional, family-oriented. They've made it clear they prefer to partner with someone who shares those values." "So what exactly are you suggesting?" Jude asked, though he already knew the answer. "The Nakamuras will be in Chicago for the next 3 months," said the 3rd board member, James Wilson. "During that time they need to see you as stable, settled." "You want me to find a wife?" Jude's voice was flat. "Not necessarily a wife," Victoria clarified, "but someone who can accompany you to events. Someone who makes you appear committed, grounded." Jude turned to face the window, watching the city below. This merger would cement Stephen Global as the dominant force in luxury development across Asia. Years of work, billions in potential revenue, all hanging on whether he could convince a traditional Japanese family that he wasn't just a wealthy bachelor. "You have 90 days, Jude," Victoria said softly. "That's when they make their final decision." After the board members left, Jude loosened his tie and poured himself 2 fingers of scotch. The amber liquid caught the light as he swirled it, contemplating his options. His phone buzzed. A text from his sister Lily. "Dinner tonight? I'm worried about you." Jude sighed. Lily was the only person who saw through his carefully constructed facade. He texted back. "My place, 8 p.m. Across town, in a modest apartment in Wicker Park, Charlie Bennett hunched over her laptop, squinting at the screen. The electricity bill glowed red with an overdue notice. "Charlie?" her brother's voice called from the bedroom. "Did you take your portfolio to that interview today?" Charlie minimized the bill and forced brightness into her voice. "Yeah, Max. They said they'll call by the end of the week." She didn't mention that the design agency had already filled the position, or that this was the 3rd rejection this month, or that Max's medical bills had just arrived, adding another $5,000 to their mounting debt. Charlie moved to the kitchen, opening the refrigerator to find it nearly empty. She'd skipped dinner again tonight. Max needed the protein more than she did. The apartment door opened and their mother entered, looking exhausted after her double shift at the hospital. "Any news?" her mother asked, setting down her purse. Charlie shook her head. "Not yet, but something will come through." She always said this, even when hope felt like a luxury they couldn't afford. Her phone rang, an unknown number. "Hello? Charlie, it's Lily Stephen." Charlie smiled despite her exhaustion. Lily had been her roommate in college before Charlie had to drop out to care for Max. They'd stayed friends, though their lives had diverged dramatically. "Lily, it's been ages." "I know, I'm terrible. Listen, are you free for coffee tomorrow? There's something I want to discuss with you. It might sound crazy, but it could solve a lot of problems." Charlie glanced at the stack of bills on the counter, at the nearly empty refrigerator, at the bottle of Max medication that needed refilling. "Crazy is exactly what I need right now," she said. "Where and when?" "Riverside Cafe, noon. And Charlie?" "Where's something nice?" After hanging up, Charlie stared at her phone, puzzled by Lily's mysterious request. Little did she know that across the city, Lily was calling her brother with a proposition that would alter both their lives forever. "Jude," Lily said into her phone, watching pedestrians hurry past her office window, "I think I've found your solution." And hers. The Riverside Cafe buzzed with lunchtime energy as Charlie pushed through the door. She'd worn her only interview outfit, a navy blazer over a white blouse and dark jeans, the closest thing to nice in her wardrobe. Lily waved from a corner table, looking effortlessly elegant in a designer dress. Next to her sat a man whose presence seemed to command the room even in stillness. Charlie recognized Jude Stephen immediately. His face occasionally graced business magazines and local news. In person he was more imposing, tall with sharp features and penetrating gray eyes that assessed her as she approached. "Charlie," Lily stood to embrace her. You look great. Thanks for the white lie, Charlie said with a small laugh. You know this is the same outfit I wore to your graduation. Jude didn't smile. He stood and extended his hand. Charlotte Bennett, not a question. He'd done his research. Just Charlie, she corrected, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, businesslike. Please, sit, he said, gesturing to the empty chair. Charlie sat, suddenly aware of the contrast between them. His tailored suit probably cost more than 6 months of her rent. I'll get straight to the point, Jude said after they ordered. I need a wife. Charlie choked on her water. Excuse me? A temporary wife, he clarified, for 90 days. Lily jumped in. Jude needs to appear more settled for an important business deal. It's purely for appearances. Charlie looked between them, waiting for the punchline. When none came, she laughed nervously. And you thought of me because you need money, Jude stated bluntly. And I'm willing to pay generously for discretion and commitment. Charlie's amusement vanished. She glanced at Lily, who had the decency to look apologetic. I told him about Max's condition, Lily admitted. And your financial situation, which wasn't your place, Charlie said, heat rising to her cheeks. No, it wasn't, Jude agreed, surprising her. But I appreciate her indiscretion in this case. I need someone trustworthy, intelligent, and capable of playing a convincing role. Lily believes you're all three. Their food arrived, but Charlie had lost her appetite. So, you want me to pretend to be your loving wife for 3 months? Yes, in exchange for $500,000. The figure hung in the air between them. Charlie's mind raced. Mac's treatments, their mother's exhaustion, the mounting bills, the constant fear of eviction. What exactly would this involve? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. You would move into my penthouse, accompany me to business events, be seen with me in public, create the impression of a committed relationship, and in private? We would lead separate lives. I have no interest in complicating this arrangement with entanglements. Charlie raised an eyebrow. Entanglements? Emotional or physical involvement, he clarified, his expression unchanged. This is strictly business. I see. Charlie pushed her salad around her plate. And what's my backstory? How did the elusive Jude Stephen meet and fall for a nobody from Wicker Park? Something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance, perhaps. You're Lily's former roommate. We met at one of her gallery openings 6 months ago. We've been quietly dating since then and recently decided to marry. Simple enough, Charlie conceded. And what happens after 90 days? We divorce quietly, you sign an NDA, you keep the money and return to your life. Charlie sat back, studying him. Why me? Surely there are professional, escorts or actresses who do this kind of thing? I considered that, Jude admitted. But the Nakamuras are perceptive. They would see through someone playing a part. You have genuine connections to my life through Lily, and you have real motivation to make this work. Charlie's phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Max's fever is back. Doctor wants to see him ASAP. Can you come home? Her stomach dropped. I need to go. My brother is having complications again, Jude finished. Take my car. It's faster than a rideshare. He nodded to a black Bentley parked outside. Charlie hesitated, then grabbed her bag. I haven't agreed to anything, I know. But the offer stands. He handed her a business card. My private number. Call me when you decide. 3 days later, Charlie sat in the hospital waiting room, staring at Jude's card. Max had been admitted with a severe infection, a complication of his autoimmune condition. The doctors wanted to try a new treatment protocol, but insurance wouldn't cover it. $60,000, might as well be 60 million. Her mother dozed in the chair beside her, dark circles under her eyes from working double shifts. Charlie made her decision and stepped into the hallway. Jude answered on the second ring. Charlotte, it's Charlie, she corrected automatically. I'll do it, but I have conditions. A pause. Go on, I need an advance. 60,000 for my brother's treatment, and I need to be able to visit my family regularly. Done. Anything else? Charlie took a deep breath. I won't sleep with you, not part of the deal. I never suggested it would be, he replied, his tone cool. Is that all? No, I want everything in writing, a contract that protects both of us. My lawyers are already drafting it. I'll have them add your stipulations. He paused. When can you move in? Charlie looked back at her exhausted mother. I need 3 days to arrange things with my family. Fine, I'll send a car on Friday at noon. And Charlie? Yes? The money for your brother's treatment will be transferred within the hour. True to his word, Charlie's phone pinged with a bank notification 60 minutes later. Just like that, the immediate crisis was averted. But as she watched the nurses prep Max for his new treatment, a sense of foreboding settled over her. She was about to enter a contract with a man who viewed relationships as business transactions, a man who could solve a life-threatening financial crisis without blinking, a man who would be her husband in name only for the next 90 days. What Charlie couldn't possibly know was that Jude Stephen had his own secrets, and that their carefully structured arrangement was about to become far more complicated than either of them had bargained for. The courthouse was all steel and glass, impersonal and efficient, perfect for a marriage that was nothing more than a business transaction. Charlie wore a simple white dress she'd found on clearance, while Jude arrived in one of his standard charcoal suits, the only concession to the occasion being a white rose pinned to his lapel. "You didn't have to do that," Charlie said, nodding at the flower. "Appearances," he replied simply. Lily served as their witness, her smile strained as she watched her brother and friend exchange vows that meant nothing. The ceremony lasted exactly 7 minutes. No music, no readings, just the bare minimum required by law. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, an awkward moment hung between them. Charlie realized Jude was supposed to kiss her. Instead, he took her hand and squeezed it gently, for the benefit of the judge. "Congratulations," the judge said, clearly puzzled by their lack of emotion. Outside, Jude checked his watch. "I have a meeting in 30 minutes. The movers should have delivered your things to the penthouse by now. Lily will take you there." "That's it?" Charlie asked. "We just got married and you're going to a meeting?" Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. "Would you prefer a reception?" "No, I just—" Charlie shook her head. "Never mind, go to your meeting." Jude nodded to his sister, then strode toward his waiting car without looking back. "He's not always like this," Lily said, watching her brother leave. "Well, he is, but there's more to him than you see." "I don't need to see more," Charlie replied. "This is a contract, not a relationship." The elevator to Jude's penthouse required a fingerprint scan and a key code, both of which Lily helped program for Charlie. When the doors opened directly into the apartment, Charlie froze. The space was immense, all gleaming surfaces, minimalist furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing a panoramic view of Chicago. Everything was in shades of gray, black, and white, like living inside a high-end architectural magazine. "This is where I'm supposed to live for 3 months?" Charlie whispered. "The master suite is through there," Lily pointed. "But Jude's had the guest room prepared for you. He thought you'd be more comfortable with your own space." Charlie nodded, relieved. "Where are my things?" "Probably in your room. The staff would have unpacked for you." "The staff?" Charlie echoed. "Mrs. Winters comes in daily to manage the household. There's also a chef who prepares meals 3 times a week and a cleaning service on Tuesdays and Fridays." Charlie laughed nervously. "Of course there is." After Lily left, Charlie explored her new temporary home. Her room was larger than her entire apartment, with a bathroom that featured a shower big enough for 4 people and a tub that looked like a small pool. She found her meager possessions neatly arranged, clothes hung in a walk-in closet that could have housed a small family, books lined up on a shelf, her laptop on a desk by the window. Her worn sketchbooks and art supplies looked out of place among the luxury. A knock at the door startled her. An older woman with silver hair and kind eyes stood there. Mrs. Bennet stepped forward. "I'm Mrs. Winters. I manage the household." "Just Charlie, please," she said automatically. Mrs. Winters smiled. "Charlie, then. I've prepared a light dinner in case you're hungry. Mr. Stephen called to say he'll be home around 9. "Thank you, but you don't need to wait on me. I can manage. It's no trouble. It's my job." Mrs. Winters hesitated. "If I may say so, it's nice to have someone else in this apartment. It gets rather quiet with just Mr. Stephen." After Mrs. Winters left, Charlie wandered into the kitchen, where she found a plate of salmon, asparagus, and roasted potatoes waiting. She ate standing up, looking out at the city lights, feeling like an imposter in someone else's life. Jude returned at precisely 9:07 p.m. Charlie was curled up on the massive living room sofa, sketching the skyline view. "You're still up," he said, loosening his tie. Charlie closed her sketchbook. "I wanted to talk about how this is going to work, day to day, I mean." Jude poured himself a drink. "Would you like one?" No thanks. He sat in an armchair across from her. The Nakamuras arrive next week. Before then, we need to establish our public presence as a couple. I've arranged for us to be seen at several key locations. Dinner at Alinea tomorrow, the symphony on Thursday, and the hospital charity gala on Saturday. The hospital gala? Charlie perked up. My mom works at Northwestern Memorial. I know. That's why I chose it. It gives our relationship credibility if we support causes connected to your family. Charlie was surprised by his thoughtfulness, calculated though it was. What about during the day? She asked. I can't just sit here. You can do whatever you want, within reason. Continue your freelance work. The second bedroom has been set up as an office for you. Charlie blinked. You set up an office for me? Lily mentioned you're a graphic designer? I assumed you'd need a workspace. Again, she was caught off guard by his consideration. Thank you, she said. That's unexpectedly thoughtful. Jude shrugged. It's practical. You'll be more convincing as my wife if you're not miserable. Right. Practical. Charlie stood. Well, I should get some sleep. Big day tomorrow, pretending to be madly in love with you. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I'm told I grow on people. Like a fungus? Charlie quipped before she could stop herself. To her surprise, Jude actually laughed. A short, genuine sound that transformed his face. For a moment he looked younger, almost approachable. Good night, Charlie, he said, still smiling slightly. Good night, husband, she replied, testing the word. Something shifted in his expression, a flicker of something unreadable, before his professional mask slipped back into place. The next morning, Charlie woke to find Jude already gone. A note on the kitchen counter informed her he'd be back at 7 p.m. for their dinner reservation. She spent the day exploring the penthouse and setting up her new office, which was equipped with a top-of-the-line computer, graphics tablet, and software she'd only dreamed of affording. At 6:30, she was putting the finishing touches on her makeup when her phone rang. It was Max. How's the palace? He asked, his voice stronger than it had been in weeks. Ridiculous, Charlie admitted. The bathroom is bigger than our entire apartment. And the billionaire husband? Charlie lowered her voice, though she was alone. Cold, efficient, exactly what you'd expect. Mom still thinks you've lost your mind. Maybe I have, Charlie sighed. How are you feeling? Better. The new treatment seems to be working. His voice grew serious. Charlie, are you sure about this? Living with a stranger, pretending to be his wife? I'm sure about getting you better, she said firmly. The rest is just temporary. After hanging up, Charlie finished getting ready. She'd brought her one good dress, a deep green silk that Lily had helped her buy for job interviews. It was simple but elegant. The best she could do. When she emerged from her room, she found Jude waiting in the living room. He turned, and for a brief moment his composure slipped. His eyes widened slightly as they traveled from her face to her dress and back again. You looked, he began, then cleared his throat. That color suits you. Thanks, Charlie said, suddenly self-conscious. Is it appropriate for Alinea? It's perfect. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. But you should wear this. Inside was a platinum wedding band, paired with an engagement ring featuring a diamond that caught the light in dazzling patterns. Wow, Charlie breathed. Is this real? Of course it's real, Jude said, looking mildly offended. Did you think I'd give my wife a fake diamond? I'm not actually your wife, Charlie reminded him, slipping the rings on. They fit perfectly. How did you know my size? Lily, he explained, showing his own platinum band. We should go. The car is waiting. In the elevator, Charlie caught their reflection in the mirrored wall. Jude in his impeccable suit, herself in her simple dress, both wearing rings that symbolized a commitment neither felt. They looked like a couple, but the distance between them was palpable. As the elevator descended, Jude suddenly said, My parents had a marriage of convenience. Charlie turned to him, surprised by the personal disclosure. My father needed my mother's family connections. She needed his money, he continued, eyes fixed on the descending floor numbers. They were miserable together. Is that why you've never married? Charlie asked softly. Jude's gaze met hers in the reflection. One of many reasons. The elevator doors opened before she could respond. Jude placed his hand lightly on the small of her back as they walked through the lobby, their first public appearance as husband and wife. His touch was warm through the silk of her dress, and Charlie was startled by how natural it felt. For a brief moment she forgot this was all pretend, and judging by the slight tension in Jude's posture, he'd felt something unexpected too. Dinner at Alinea passed in a blur of exquisite food and carefully crafted conversation. Charlie was surprised by how easily Jude slipped into the role of attentive husband, his hand occasionally covering hers, his eyes finding hers across the table with practiced affection. By the time they returned to the penthouse, she felt drained from maintaining the facade. "You did well tonight," Jude said as they rode the elevator up. "The Pattersons were convinced." "The who?" "The couple at the next table. He's on the board of Nakamura's American subsidiary." Charlie shook her head. "That wasn't a coincidence." "Very little in my life is," Jude admitted. The next morning, Charlie woke to find a schedule in her email, a detailed itinerary for the week, including 3 more casual public appearances before the symphony on Thursday. "Do you plan everything to the minute?" she asked Jude over breakfast, which he was surprisingly present for. He glanced up from his newspaper. "Efficiency matters." "So does spontaneity," she countered. Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. "Is that your professional opinion as my wife of 2 days?" "It's my opinion as someone who doesn't have a color-coded schedule for bathroom breaks." To her surprise, Jude laughed. That same genuine sound she'd heard the night before. It transformed his face, softening the hard lines around his mouth. "I'll take it under advisement," he said, returning to his paper. Their first week fell into an unexpected rhythm. Mornings were quiet. Jude often left early, but occasionally they shared breakfast. During the day, Charlie worked on freelance projects in her new office, the high-end equipment allowing her to take on more complex assignments. Evenings were spent in public, crafting their image as Chicago's newest power couple. On Wednesday afternoon, Charlie was exploring the penthouse while on a call with a client when she discovered a locked door. Curiosity piqued, she mentioned it to Mrs. Winters later. "That's Mr. Stevens' private room," the housekeeper said. "No one goes in there, not even me." That night, Charlie couldn't help asking, "What's behind the locked door down the hall?" Jude stiffened. "Nothing important. Must be something if it's the only locked room in the place." "It's private," he said firmly. Charlie raised her hands in surrender. "Sorry I asked." The next day, Charlie returned early from a coffee meeting to find water seeping under the mysterious door. Panicked, she called Jude. "I need the key to your private room," she said when he answered. "There's water coming out from under the door." Jude swore. "The key is in my desk drawer, top right." Charlie found it and rushed back to the door. Inside, she discovered a burst pipe had sprayed water across what appeared to be an art studio. Canvases lined the walls, landscapes, abstracts, and portraits in various stages of completion. In the center, a large painting stood on an easel, partially covered by a cloth. She quickly shut off the water valve under the sink, then grabbed towels to mop up the mess. Most of the paintings had been spared, but water had splashed onto the canvas on the easel. Charlie carefully blotted it dry, accidentally pulling back the cloth. It was a portrait of a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Jude's mother, she realized, recognizing her from photos in Lily's apartment. The painting captured not just her likeness, but a warmth and depth that spoke of deep affection. "What are you doing?" Charlie jumped. Jude stood in the doorway, his expression thunderous. "I was trying to save your paintings," she explained. "The pipe burst." His eyes went to the uncovered portrait, then back to her. "You should have waited for me." "And let everything get ruined?" Charlie gestured to the soaked floor. "I was trying to help." Jude moved past her to examine the portrait. His fingers hovered over the canvas, not quite touching it. "Is it damaged?" Charlie asked softly. "No," he admitted. "You did the right thing." The admission seemed to cost him. He surveyed the room, taking in the minimal water damage. "I didn't know you painted," Charlie said. "Few people do." Jude's voice was tight. "It's not something I share." "Where not? These are beautiful." He looked at her, surprise evident in his expression. "They're amateur at best." "They're honest," Charlie countered. "Especially that one." She nodded toward the portrait. "Your mother?" Jude nodded. "She died when I was 16. I'm sorry." Charlie hesitated. My dad died when I was 19. It changes you. Something shifted in Jude's expression, a recognition of shared experience. Yes, it does. They stood in silence, water soaking into their shoes, an unexpected moment of connection hanging between them. The night of the hospital charity gala arrived. Charlie had been dreading it. Not just because her mother would be there, but because it represented her first major public appearance as Mrs. Stevens. I have nothing to wear, she told Lily during an emergency phone call. My one good dress isn't gala material. Check your closet again, Lily suggested mysteriously. Charlie found a garment bag she hadn't noticed before. Inside was a midnight blue gown that shimmered with subtle beading, along with matching shoes and a small clutch. A note was pinned to the dress. For appearances. The dress fit perfectly, highlighting curves Charlie didn't often showcase. When she emerged from her room, Jude was waiting by the windows, his back to her. He turned at the sound of her heels and went completely still. For a long moment he simply looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then he cleared his throat. The dress is suitable. It's beautiful, Charlie said. Thank you. It's practical, he replied, but his eyes lingered on her in a way that felt anything but practical. At the gala, Charlie was immediately overwhelmed by the opulence and the curious stares. Everyone wanted to meet the woman who had captured Chicago's most eligible bachelor. Jude stayed close, his hand at the small of her back, guiding her through conversations with practiced ease. Just breathe, he murmured when he sensed her tension. You're doing fine. When Charlie spotted her mother across the room, she tensed. My mom's here. We should say hello, Jude said, surprising her. She is my mother-in-law, after all. The introduction was awkward but brief. Jude was surprisingly charming, complimenting her mother's dedication to nursing and making a substantial donation to the pediatric ward where she worked. By the end of the conversation, even her skeptical mother seemed somewhat won over. He's not what I expected, her mother admitted when Jude stepped away to get drinks. He's full of surprises, Charlie replied, realizing it was true. Later, as they danced, Charlie found herself relaxing into Jude's arms. He moved with confidence, leading her effortlessly across the floor. Where did you learn to dance? She asked. Boarding school, he replied. Mandatory lessons. Of course, Charlie laughed. I learned from YouTube videos before my cousin's wedding. Jude's lips twitched. You're full of surprises, Charlie Bennett. Stephen, she corrected. Charlie. Stephen. Remember? Something flickered in his eyes at the sound of his name on her lips. His hand tightened slightly at her waist, drawing her closer. How could I forget? He murmured. As the evening progressed, Charlie noticed a striking woman watching them from across the room, tall, elegant, with sharp features and calculating eyes. Who's that? Charlie asked. Jude followed her gaze, his body tensing. Vanessa Hargrove? My ex, the one who wanted your money, among other things. His jaw tightened. She's coming over. Before Charlie could prepare, Vanessa appeared before them, her smile not reaching her eyes. Jude, darling, she purred. Aren't you going to introduce me to your bride? The way she said bride made it sound like a joke. Vanessa, this is my wife Charlotte, Jude said, his voice cool. Charlie, Vanessa is an old acquaintance. How quaint, Vanessa said, eyeing Charlie's dress. I didn't realize you were interested in charity cases. Jude? Charlie felt Jude stiffen beside her. Before he could respond, she placed her hand on his chest and smiled sweetly at Vanessa. It's not charity when you're investing in something of value, she said. But I wouldn't expect someone who's only interested in quick returns to understand that. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Enjoy it while it lasts, dear. Jude has a short attention span for distractions. As she walked away, Charlie realized her hand was still on Jude's chest, his heart beating rapidly beneath her palm. She looked up to find him watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Let's get some air, he said, his voice low. He led her to a secluded balcony overlooking the city lights. The night air was cool against Charlie's flushed skin. I'm sorry about that, she said. I shouldn't have. Don't apologize, Jude interrupted. What you said was perfect. Charlie looked up at him, surprised by the warmth in his voice. Really? Really? His eyes searched her face. You continue to surprise me, Charlie. Is that a good thing? I'm not sure yet, he admitted. They stood close, the sounds of the gala muffled behind them. Charlie was acutely aware of Jude's proximity, of the subtle scent of his cologne. of the way his eyes kept dropping to her lips. "We should go back inside," she whispered, not moving. "We should," he agreed, stepping closer. When his hand came up to cup her cheek, Charlie knew she should pull away. This wasn't part of their arrangement. This wasn't in the contract. But when Jude's lips met hers, gentle and questioning, she found herself responding, her hands sliding up to his shoulders as the kiss deepened. It was nothing like the practiced affection they'd displayed in public. This was real, unexpected, and dangerously intoxicating. When they finally broke apart, they stared at each other in stunned silence, both shaken by what had just happened, and what it might mean for their carefully structured arrangement. The ride home from the gala was silent, the air between them charged with unspoken questions. Charlie stared out the window, her mind replaying the kiss over and over. It had been her first real kiss in years, and by far the most affecting. Jude sat beside her, outwardly composed but for the tension in his jaw and the way his fingers drummed against his knee. When the car pulled up to their building, he finally spoke. "We should talk about what happened." Charlie nodded, not trusting her voice. In the penthouse, Charlie kicked off her heels while Jude loosened his tie. The familiar domestic gesture struck her as strangely intimate now. "Would you like a drink?" he asked. "Please." He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing one to Charlie. She took a sip, welcoming the burn. "About the kiss," Jude began, his voice carefully neutral. "It was unplanned. That's one word for it," Charlie said. "I apologize if I overstepped." Charlie looked up at him. "Did you mean it?" "The kiss?" Jude hesitated, something rare for him. "I'm not sure what I meant. That's not an answer." "It's the truth." He set down his glass. "This arrangement is becoming complicated." Charlie laughed softly. "You think?" A hint of a smile touched his lips before fading. "We agreed to keep things professional." "We did," Charlie acknowledged, "but that was before I knew you," she admitted. "The real you, not just the billionaire businessman." Jude looked away, uncomfortable with her perception. "You don't know me, Charlie. I know you paint beautiful portraits of your mother. I know you're kind to Mrs. Winters when you think no one's watching. I know you made a huge donation to my mother's ward without telling me." She took another sip of whiskey. "I'm starting to see past the facade, Jude." He was silent for a long moment. "And what do you see?" "Someone who's been hurt. Someone who hides behind contracts and schedules because feelings are messy and unpredictable." Jude's expression hardened. "That's presumptuous. Am I wrong?" Instead of answering, he asked, "What about you? What are you hiding behind this arrangement?" The question caught Charlie off guard. She swirled the amber liquid in her glass, considering her answer. "Security," she finally said. "The chance to help my family without drowning in debt, but also—" She took a deep breath. "Maybe hiding from relationships, too." "And what would you need to hide from relationships?" Charlie set down her glass, suddenly finding the conversation too intense while standing. She moved to the sofa and sat, tucking her legs beneath her. After a moment, Jude joined her, keeping a careful distance between them. "I've never been good at them," she admitted. "Relationships, I mean. Between taking care of Max and working multiple jobs, I never had time, and the few dates I went on," she shrugged. "They never understood why I couldn't be spontaneous, why my family always came first." "That's their failure, not yours," Jude said quietly. Charlie looked at him, surprised by his defense. "Maybe, but after a while it seemed easier not to try." "So, you've never had a serious relationship?" "No." Charlie traced the pattern on the sofa with her finger, avoiding his eyes. "I've never had much of any relationship, actually." Jude was silent, processing her words. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "Charlie, are you saying you're inexperienced?" She gave a small laugh. "That's one way to put it." "How inexperienced?" Charlie met his gaze directly. "Completely. I'm a virgin, Jude." His eyes widened slightly, the most surprise she'd ever seen him display. "I see. Is that a problem?" "No," he said quickly. "I'm just surprised, because it's the 21st century and who waits anymore, right?" "Because you're beautiful, intelligent, and compassionate," Jude corrected. "I assumed men would be lining up for your attention." The compliment, delivered so matter-of-factly, made Charlie blush. "Well, they weren't. And then life got complicated, and it just Never happened. Jude was quiet for a long moment. Thank you for telling me. I thought you should know. After the kiss, she shrugged. It seemed relevant. It changes things, he admitted. Why? We agreed this isn't a real relationship. Jude ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty. It changes things because I find myself wanting to kiss you again, and that's not part of our arrangement. The admission hung between them, honest and unexpected. Oh, Charlie said softly. Your first time shouldn't be with someone who's paying you to pretend to be his wife, Jude continued, his voice tight. You deserve better than that. Shouldn't that be my decision? Charlie asked. Jude stood abruptly. It's late. We should get some rest. Charlie watched him retreat, confused by his reaction. Jude? He paused, but didn't turn. Yes, the kiss. I don't regret it. His shoulders tensed. Good night, Charlie. The next morning, Charlie woke to find the penthouse empty. A note on the kitchen counter informed her that Jude had early meetings and wouldn't be back until evening. It was formal, almost cold, a stark contrast to the vulnerability of the night before. Charlie spent the day working on designs for a new client, trying to focus on anything but Jude and their conversation. When her phone rang with Lily's number, she welcomed the distraction. How's married life? Lily asked. Complicated, Charlie admitted. Oh, what happened? Charlie hesitated. We kissed. At the gala. Was it part of the act? No, it was real. Lily was quiet for a moment. And how do you feel about that? Confused. Nervous. Charlie sighed. I told him. I've never been with anyone. How did he react? He said it changes things, that I deserve better than whatever this is. That sounds like Jude, Lily said. He has this weird protective streak, always has. I don't need his protection, Charlie said. I need... She trailed off, unsure how to finish. What do you need, Charlie? I don't know anymore. After hanging up, Charlie tried to return to work, but her concentration was shot. Instead, she found herself wandering to Jude's studio. The door was unlocked now. The lock had been damaged by the water. Inside, she discovered a new canvas on the easel. It was a rough sketch, just beginning to take form, but Charlie recognized the subject immediately. Herself, in the blue gown from the gala, looking out over the city from the balcony where they'd kissed. She backed out of the room, her heart racing. Jude was painting her. When Jude returned that evening, Charlie was waiting in the living room. He paused when he saw her, his expression guarded. We need to talk, she said. About? I saw the painting. The one you started of me. Jude's jaw tightened. You shouldn't have gone in there. The door was unlocked. Charlie stood. Why are you painting me, Jude? He set down his briefcase, buying time. I paint things that affect me, and I affect you. More than you should, he admitted. Charlie moved closer. Last night you walked away. I was trying to do the right thing. For who? For you, Jude said, frustration edging into his voice. This arrangement is temporary, Charlie. In 2 months it ends. You take the money, I get my merger, and we go our separate ways. That was the deal. And if things change? They can't. His voice was firm. I don't do relationships, not real ones. Because of your parents? Jude's expression hardened. Because relationships are distractions. They're messy and unpredictable and inevitably disappointing. So you'd rather live your whole life alone than risk being hurt? Charlie challenged. I'd rather focus on what I can control, he countered. Like your feelings for me? The question hung between them, direct and unavoidable. Jude's composure slipped, just for a moment, revealing a flash of vulnerability. My feelings are irrelevant, he finally said. We have a contract. Contracts can be amended, Charlie said softly. Jude stepped closer, close enough that Charlie could see the internal struggle in his eyes. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we stop pretending there's nothing between us. And then what? His voice was low, intense. We have a brief affair, and when the contract ends, you leave with a broken heart and I go back to my life? How is that fair to you? Why are you so sure I'd be the only one with a broken heart? Charlie asked. The question seemed to hit Jude like a physical blow. He turned away, moving to the windows to stare out at the city. I can't offer you what you deserve, Charlie, he said finally. Your first time should be with someone who can give you more than 90 days. Charlie moved to stand beside him. Maybe I'm not asking for forever. Maybe I'm just asking for now. Jude looked down at her, his expression torn between desire and restraint. You don't know what you're asking for. I'm 27 years old, Jude. I think I know my own mind. And your heart? The question was soft, almost vulnerable. Charlie placed her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat quicken beneath her palm. My heart is my concern, she said. Not yours. Jude covered her hand with his own. That's where you're wrong. Before she could respond, his phone rang, the special tone he'd set for calls related to the Nakamura merger. He closed his eyes briefly, then stepped back. I have to take this. Charlie nodded, letting her hand fall. We're not done talking about this. As Jude answered the call and walked toward his office, he paused in the doorway, looking back at her with an expression that made her breath catch. No, he agreed, we're not. Alone by the windows, Charlie wrapped her arms around herself, wondering how a fake marriage had led to the most real feelings she'd ever experienced, and whether Jude's carefully constructed rules could withstand the growing connection between them. The Nakamura dinner was set for Friday evening at Jude's penthouse, a private affair to showcase his domestic bliss. All week, Charlie and Jude had circled each other cautiously, their conversation about feelings and contracts left unfinished as business demands consumed Jude's attention. Charlie threw herself into preparations, determined to make the evening perfect despite the tension between them. She worked with a chef on a menu that blended American and Japanese influences, arranged flowers throughout the apartment, and even learned a few Japanese phrases to welcome their guests. You didn't have to go to such lengths, Jude said, finding her reviewing place settings Thursday evening. I want to help you succeed, Charlie replied simply. That's why I'm here, isn't it? Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment, perhaps. Yes, I suppose it is. Friday morning, Charlie woke to find a small box outside her door. Inside was a delicate pearl necklace with a note. For tonight. Thank you for your efforts. The gesture touched her more than it should have. She was slipping the necklace on to see how it looked when her phone rang. Max's doctor with good news about his latest test results. The new treatment was working better than expected. Elated, Charlie rushed to share the news with Jude, heading toward his home office. The door was ajar, and she heard his voice, tense and low. This isn't the time, Vanessa. Charlie froze. I understand your position, Jude continued, but my decision is final. A pause as he listened. My marriage is not your concern. Another pause. No, that's not possible. Charlie knew she should walk away, but her feet wouldn't move. What we had is in the past, Jude said firmly. I've moved on. Another pause, longer this time. I can't deny that. His voice softened. But it doesn't change anything. Charlie's stomach twisted. What couldn't he deny? That he still had feelings for Vanessa. Fine. Monday at 2. My office, not here. Jude's tone was resigned. This is the last time, Vanessa. After this we're done. The last time for what? Charlie backed away silently, her excitement about Max's news forgotten. She returned to her room, the pearl necklace suddenly feeling heavy against her skin. The Nakamura dinner began at 7. Charlie played her part flawlessly, the attentive, loving wife who complemented Jude's business acumen with warmth and charm. Mr. Nakamura and his wife seemed genuinely delighted by her, especially when she presented them with a hand-illustrated card expressing gratitude for their visit in Japanese. Your wife is a treasure, Steven-san, Mr. Nakamura said as the evening concluded. You are a fortunate man. I know, Jude replied, his hand finding Charlie's waist in what had become a familiar gesture. She reminds me every day. After their guests departed, Charlie immediately began clearing dishes, needing something to occupy her hands. Leave that for the staff, Jude said. You were remarkable tonight. Thank you. Her voice was cool, distant. Jude frowned. Is something wrong? No. Charlie continued stacking plates. Everything's fine. Clearly it's not. He took the dishes from her hands, setting them down. Talk to me, Charlie. I heard you, she said finally, on the phone with Vanessa this morning. Jude's expression tightened. You were eavesdropping? I was coming to tell you about Max's test results. Your door was open. Charlie met his gaze. You're meeting her on Monday, for business, Jude clarified. Her father is a minority investor in one of my subsidiaries. It sounded personal to me. What exactly do you think you heard? Charlie looked away. You said you couldn't deny something. After she mentioned your feelings for her, I assume. Understanding dawned in Jude's eyes. That's not what happened. It doesn't matter, Charlie said, stepping back. Our arrangement doesn't include explanations about your personal life. It does when you're making assumptions that affect our relationship. We don't have a relationship, Charlie reminded him, the words stinging even as she said them. We have a contract. Jude's jaw tightened. Is that what you think? After everything, I think I was foolish to forget what this really is. Charlie removed the pearl necklace, setting it on the counter. Thank you for the loan. It served its purpose tonight. She turned to leave, but Jude caught her arm. Charlie, wait. Let go, Jude. Not until you listen. His voice was intense, almost desperate. Vanessa called to try to rekindle things. She heard about our marriage and didn't believe it was real. Smart woman. She said I must still have feelings for her if I hadn't truly moved on. Jude's grip gentled. What I couldn't deny was that I haven't been in a real relationship since her. But I told her I'd moved on. Because I have. Charlie wanted to believe him, but fear held her back. It doesn't matter. This isn't real, remember? Isn't it? Jude challenged. The contract may be artificial, but what's happening between us isn't. Nothing is happening between us, Charlie insisted, pulling away. Nothing can happen. You made that very clear. Hurt flashed across Jude's face before his expression closed off. Fine. If that's what you want to believe. It's what you established from the beginning, Charlie reminded him. No emotional entanglements, remember? Things change. Not for men like you, Charlie said, the words sharper than she intended. You've spent your whole life avoiding real connections. Why would I be any different? Jude stepped back as if she'd struck him. You're right. This was a mistake. The coldness in his voice made Charlie's chest ache, but pride kept her from taking back her words. I'm glad we agree on something. She retreated to her room, leaning against the closed door as tears threatened. She'd been a fool to think this could ever be more than a business arrangement, to think that Jude Stephen could ever truly care for someone like her. The weekend passed in strained silence. Jude spent most of it at the office, while Charlie visited her family, finding comfort in Max's improving health and her mother's quiet support. You've fallen for him, her mother observed as they washed dishes together. Charlie nearly dropped a plate. What? No, sweetheart. I've known you your whole life. I see the way you look when you mention his name. It's complicated, Charlie admitted. Love usually is. Her mother handed her a towel. But it's worth fighting for when it's real. How do you know when it's real? Her mother smiled sadly. When the thought of walking away hurts more than the fear of staying. Monday morning, Charlie made a decision. She would end the contract early. The Nakamuras seemed impressed. Surely Jude could maintain the facade without her for the remaining weeks. Max was improving, and with the money she'd already received, they could manage until she found steady work. She was packing a small bag when Jude returned from his meeting with Vanessa. He paused in her doorway, taking in the half-filled suitcase. Going somewhere? His voice was carefully neutral. I think it's best if I leave, Charlie said, not looking at him. The Nakamuras are convinced. You don't need me anymore. That's not your decision to make. We have a contract, which I'm willing to forfeit the remaining payment to break. Charlie finally met his gaze. This isn't working, Jude. Because of Vanessa. He stepped into the room. Nothing happened. Nothing will happen. She's my past. It's not about her, Charlie insisted. It's about us. This situation, it's too confusing. What's confusing about it? Everything. Charlie threw a shirt into her suitcase. 1 minute we're pretending, the next I don't know what we're doing, kissing on balconies, having deep conversations, you painting me in secret. Is that what you want? Jude interrupted. Clarity. Yes, fine. He moved closer, his expression intense. I'm attracted to you. I think about you constantly. I haven't painted in months, but suddenly I can't stop because you've awakened something in me I thought was dead. Is that clear enough? Charlie stared at him, stunned by his outburst. I told myself it was just physical, he continued, that once the contract ended these feelings would fade, but they're getting stronger, and it terrifies me because I don't do this, Charlie. I don't let people in. While, she whispered. Because everyone leaves. The words exploded from him. My mother died. My father chose his new family. Vanessa wanted my money, not me. Everyone I've ever cared about has left or betrayed me. The raw pain in his voice made Charlie's heart ache. I'm not them. No, you're worse, Jude said, his voice dropping. Because you make me want things I swore I'd never want again. You make me hope, and hope is dangerous. Jude, you want to leave? Fine, go. He turned away. The contract is void. You'll receive the full payment as agreed. I don't want your money, Charlie said, anger rising. That's not why I'm here anymore, and you know it. Then why are you here, Charlie? Jude demanded, turning back. What do you want from me? I want you to be honest, not just with me, but with yourself. About what? About your feelings, Charlie challenged. About why you're so determined to push me away when it's obvious you don't want me to go. What I want doesn't matter, Jude said bitterly. It never has. It matters to me. Charlie moved toward him. Tell me what you want, Jude. Not what's practical or what makes business sense. What do you want? The question hung between them, charged with all the emotions they'd been fighting for weeks. Jude's composure cracked, revealing the conflict raging beneath. I want you, he admitted, his voice rough. Not as part of a contract, not as a business arrangement. I want you in my life, in my bed, in my future. I want things I have no right to ask for. The confession stole Charlie's breath. Why don't you have the right? Because I'm not good at this, Jude gestured between them. Relationships, feelings. I'll hurt you eventually. Maybe, Charlie acknowledged. Or maybe I'll hurt you. That's the risk we take. I can't lose you, Jude said, the words seeming to surprise even him. I've never said that to anyone before. Charlie stepped closer, close enough to see the vulnerability in his eyes. Then stop pushing me away, and if it doesn't work, if we try and fail, then we fail, Charlie said simply. But at least we'll know we were brave enough to try. Jude reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek with a tenderness that made her heart race. I don't want you to leave. Then ask me to stay, Charlie whispered. Not as your contract wife, as me. The moment stretched between them, taut with possibility and fear. Jude's carefully constructed walls were crumbling, and Charlie could see the battle within him, the desire to protect himself warring with his growing feelings for her. Stay, he finally said, his voice barely audible. Please. The simple word, so difficult for him to say, changed everything between them. The contract, the pretense, the careful distance, all of it fell away, leaving only two people standing on the edge of something real and terrifying, and potentially beautiful. Despite Jude's request for her to stay, Charlie knew they both needed space to process what had happened between them. The emotional walls Jude had maintained for years couldn't come down overnight, and Charlie needed time to sort through her own feelings. I need to visit my family for a few days, she told him the next morning. Max has a follow-up appointment, and I promised I'd be there. Jude nodded, his expression carefully neutral, though his eyes betrayed his concern. When will you return? The question held more weight than its simple words suggested. Friday, Charlie said, if that's okay. This is your home too, Jude replied, for as long as you want it to be. The word home lingered between them, its meaning shifting from a temporary arrangement to something more permanent, more significant. As Charlie packed a proper suitcase this time, Jude hovered in the doorway. Charlie? Yes? We're not pretending anymore, are we? His voice held a rare uncertainty. Charlie looked up at him, seeing the vulnerability beneath his composed exterior. No, we're not, he nodded, seeming both relieved and terrified. Safe travels. The first day without Charlie, Jude threw himself into work, scheduling back-to-back meetings that left no time for reflection. By evening, he found himself standing in his empty penthouse, the silence oppressive in a way it had never been before. He wandered into Charlie's room, taking in the small touches that had transformed the impersonal space. Sketches pinned to a corkboard, a half-read novel on the nightstand, a cardigan draped over a chair. The room smelled faintly of her perfume, something light and floral that he'd come to associate with mornings in the kitchen, her laughing at his serious approach to coffee. Jude sat on the edge of her bed, overwhelmed by how thoroughly she had infiltrated his carefully ordered life. 3 weeks ago, he wouldn't have noticed the silence in his penthouse. Now it felt wrong. His phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "How's it going with Charlie?" Jude stared at the message, unsure how to respond. Finally he typed, "She's visiting her family. I asked her to stay when she returns, not for the contract. For me." Lily's response was immediate. "Finally. And?" She said yes. "But I don't know what happens next. You figure it out together, big brother. That's how relationships work. Relationships." The word that had terrified him for so long now felt like a lifeline. The second day, Jude found himself in his studio, staring at the half-finished portrait of Charlie. He picked up a brush for the first time in days, losing himself in capturing the exact shade of her eyes, the subtle curve of her smile. Hours later he stepped back, surprised by what he'd created. It wasn't just Charlie's physical likeness on the canvas. He'd somehow captured the warmth that radiated from her, the quiet strength behind her gentle demeanor. He'd painted her as he saw her, beautiful, resilient, and utterly essential. That night he called her. "Is everything okay?" Charlie asked, concern in her voice. "Yes," Jude said. "I just wanted to hear your voice." The admission cost him nothing, he realized with surprise. The vulnerability he'd feared for so long felt natural with her. "Oh," Charlie said softly. "I'm glad you called." They talked for an hour. About Max's appointment, about a design project she was working on, about nothing and everything. When they finally said goodnight, Jude felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. By the third day, Jude could no longer deny the truth that had been building within him for weeks. He missed Charlie with an intensity that shocked him. The penthouse felt wrong without her laughter, her sketches scattered across the coffee table, her gentle teasing about his rigid schedules. He found himself in his father's old study, a room he rarely entered. In the desk drawer was a small velvet box containing his mother's engagement ring, a simple emerald surrounded by diamonds. She'd left it to him with a note. "For when you find someone who makes your heart feel like home." Jude had always assumed he'd never use it. Now he wasn't so sure. That evening he called Lily and asked her to meet him for dinner. "You're in love with her," Lily said the moment she sat down. Jude didn't deny it. "I don't know how to do this, Lily, how to be what she needs." "Have you considered that maybe you already are?" Lily reached across the table to squeeze his hand. "Charlie doesn't want perfect, Jude. She just wants real. I've spent my entire adult life avoiding real. Then it's time to stop avoiding," Lily smiled. "Tell her the truth. All of it." Friday arrived and Jude found himself checking the time obsessively. Charlie had texted that she'd be back around 6. At 5:30 he was pacing the living room, rehearsing what he wanted to say. At precisely 6:03 the elevator doors opened and Charlie stepped into the penthouse. She looked tired but happy, her smile widening when she saw him. "You're here," she said. "I half expected you to be working late." "I cleared my schedule," Jude admitted. "I wanted to be home when you arrived." The simple honesty in his voice made her set down her bag. Thank you." An awkward silence fell between them, the weight of their last conversation hanging in the air. "How's Max?" Jude asked finally. "Better. The doctor says the treatment is working even faster than expected." Charlie smiled. "He might be in full remission by Christmas." "That's wonderful news." "It is." Charlie took a deep breath. "Jude, while I was away, I did a lot of thinking." "Me too," he interrupted. "And there are things I need to tell you, things I should have told you weeks ago." Charlie nodded, following him to the sofa. They sat facing each other, close but not touching. "My parents' marriage wasn't just convenient," Jude began. "It was toxic. My father was cold, calculating. Everything had to serve a purpose. My mother was emotional, artistic. She tried to make it work, but he crushed her spirit piece by piece." Charlie listened silently, understanding how difficult this was for him. "When I was 16, she got sick. Cancer. My father was already involved with his secretary by then. He moved out while my mother was dying, started a new family before she was even gone." Jude's voice was tight with old pain. "I promised myself I'd never be like him, using people, discarding them when they no longer served a purpose." "You're not like him," Charlie said softly. "But I am," Jude countered. "Or I was. This arrangement with you, it started as exactly that, using you to get what I wanted. We both entered it willingly. Charlie reminded him. I needed the money as much as you needed a wife, but somewhere along the way it became real for me. Jude met her gaze. You became real. And it terrified me because I've spent my entire adult life making sure I never needed anyone. And now I need you, he admitted, the words both difficult and freeing. These past few days without you? The penthouse felt wrong, empty. I realized it's not home anymore unless you're here. Charlie's eyes widened at his confession. Jude, let me finish, he said gently. I'm not good at this, at opening up, at being vulnerable, but I want to try, with you. Not because of a contract or an arrangement, but because you make me want to be better. You make me want things I never thought I could have. What things? Charlie asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Connection, partnership. Jude took her hand. A real marriage someday, if that's something you might want too. Tears filled Charlie's eyes. I never expected this when I agreed to your contract. Neither did I, Jude admitted with a small smile, but here we are. Here we are, Charlie echoed, squeezing his hand. I was so afraid of getting hurt, of being just another business transaction to you. You could never be just business to me, Charlie, not anymore. Jude reached up to brush away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. I don't know how to do this perfectly. I'll make mistakes, but I want to try, if you'll be patient with me. I don't need perfect, Charlie said, echoing Lily's words without knowing it. I just need you, the real you. Even the parts that are scared and unsure. Jude pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers. I think I'm falling in love with you, Charlie Bennett. And for the first time in my life, that doesn't terrify me. Charlie smiled through her tears. Good, because I'm pretty sure I'm already in love with you, Jude Stephen. When their lips met, it wasn't like the passionate kiss at the gala or the heated moments that had followed their arguments. This kiss was gentle, tender, a promise of what could be, now that they'd both finally stopped pretending. As they pulled apart, Charlie laughed softly. So what happens now? Do we tear up the contract? Actually, Jude said, his eyes warm with emotion, I was thinking we might renegotiate the terms, a more permanent arrangement, perhaps? I'm listening, Charlie replied, her heart full with the knowledge that their fake marriage had somehow led them to the threshold of something genuinely real. The weeks that followed brought a transformation to the penthouse, and to Jude and Charlie themselves. Their relationship, no longer bound by contractual obligations, blossomed into something neither had expected when they'd first met at Riverside Cafe. One evening, Charlie was working late in her office, finalizing illustrations for a client project, when Jude appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of tea. You've been at it for hours, he said, setting a cup beside her. Take a break. Charlie stretched, rolling her shoulders. Almost done, just need to finish this last spread. Jude moved behind her, his hands gently kneading the tension from her shoulders. These are beautiful, he said, studying the illustrations on her screen. Whimsical characters for a children's story about a rabbit who dreamed of flying. Thanks. Charlie leaned into his touch. It's fun, but I wish I could work on my own stories. The ones about the little girl and her magical paintbrush? Charlie looked up at him, surprised. You remember that? I mentioned it once, weeks ago. I remember everything you tell me, Jude said simply. The casual admission warmed her heart. This was the Jude few people ever saw. Attentive, thoughtful, storing away small details that mattered to those he cared about. I've been thinking, he continued, perching on the edge of her desk. You should publish it, maybe someday when I have time to finish the illustrations. Well, not now, Charlie laughed. Because publishing doesn't just happen, Jude. It takes connections, an agent, a publisher willing to take a chance on an unknown illustrator. I might know some people, he said casually. Of course you do. Charlie shook her head fondly. But I don't want special treatment because I'm sleeping with a billionaire. Jude's expression grew serious. That's not what I'm suggesting. Your work deserves to be seen, Charlie. Your talent should stand on its own. The next morning, Charlie found a business card on the kitchen counter next to her coffee mug. Eliza Montgomery, senior editor, Brightwood Children's Books. She's expecting your call, Jude said, appearing with his own coffee. Just to review your portfolio. No promises, no special treatment. Jude, she owes me nothing, he assured her. Her company isn't connected to any of my businesses. If she likes your work, it's because it's good, not because of me. Charlie stared at the card, excitement and anxiety battling within her. What if she hates it? Then you try someone else. Jude kissed her forehead. But she won't hate it. To Charlie's amazement, Eliza Montgomery not only liked her portfolio but loved the concept for Mia's magical paintbrush. 2 weeks later, Charlie found herself signing a contract for her first children's book. "I can't believe this is happening," she told Jude as they celebrated with champagne on the balcony. "I've dreamed about this since I was a kid." "You did this," Jude reminded her. "Your talent, your vision. But you made the connection," Charlie said. "You believed in me enough to put your reputation on the line." "I believe in you more than I've ever believed in anyone," Jude admitted, his voice soft in the evening air. "Seeing you succeed makes me happier than any business deal I've ever closed." Charlie studied him in the fading light, this complex man who had entered her life as a business proposition and somehow become essential to her happiness. "You've changed," she observed. "Have I?" "The Jude I met 2 months ago would never have said something so sentimental." He smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. "The Jude you met 2 months ago hadn't met you yet." Charlie set down her champagne and moved into his arms. "I love you," she said, the words falling from her lips naturally, without hesitation or fear. Jude went still, his arms tightening around her. For a moment, Charlie worried she'd said too much too soon. Then he cupped her face in his hands, his eyes intense with emotion. "I love you too," he said, his voice rough with feeling. "More than I thought possible." Their kiss was tender, unhurried, a promise exchanged without words. When they finally pulled apart, Charlie rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Move into the master bedroom," Jude said suddenly. "With me. No more separate rooms." Charlie looked up at him, surprised by the request. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more certain of anything," he replied. "I want to fall asleep with you every night and wake up with you every morning, not just for now, but for as long as you'll have me." That night, as they lay tangled together in what was now their bed, Charlie realized how completely her life had changed in such a short time. From financial desperation to professional success, from loneliness to love, all because she'd agreed to a contract marriage with a man she'd never expected to care for. Do you believe that love can bloom in the most unexpected circumstances? Subscribe to Soul Luck Stories for more heartwarming tales of unexpected love. As their relationship deepened, one reality loomed on the horizon: the approaching end of their 90-day contract. Though they'd moved beyond its terms in private, officially they were still bound by the agreement. The Nakamura merger was proceeding smoothly, with the final papers to be signed in just 2 weeks. "What happens when the contract ends?" Charlie asked one evening as they reviewed the final illustrations for her book. Jude looked up, his expression puzzled. "What do you mean?" "Legally, our marriage was only supposed to last 90 days. Then we divorce, I take the money and you get your merger. Is that what you want?" Jude asked carefully. "Of course not," Charlie said. "But the Nakamuras will be returning to Japan after the signing," Jude interrupted. "What happens with our marriage after that is our business, not theirs. So we just stay married?" "Unless you're eager to divorce me," Jude said, attempting humor, though Charlie could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "That's not what I meant," Charlie assured him. "It's just, we got married for a business arrangement. Don't you think we should, I don't know, start over? Do things properly?" Jude set aside her illustrations, his expression growing serious. "Charlie, are you saying you want a real proposal? A real wedding, maybe?" Charlie felt her cheeks warm. "It sounds silly when you say it out loud." "It's not silly at all." Jude took her hand. "You deserve everything, the proposal, the wedding, the whole fairy tale, if that's what you want." "I don't need a fairy tale," Charlie said. "I just want something that's ours. Something that isn't tied to contracts or business deals." Jude brought her hand to his lips. "Then that's what you'll have. But not yet." "Well, not—" A mysterious smile played at his lips. "Because some things are worth waiting for." As Charlie returned to her illustrations, she couldn't help wondering what Jude was planning, and whether their unconventional beginning could truly transform into the lasting love she'd never dared to dream of. The Nakamura merger was finalized on a crisp November morning, exactly 90 days after Jude and Charlie's courthouse wedding. The signing ceremony was followed by a lavish reception where Charlie stood proudly by Jude's side, no longer playing a role but genuinely supporting the man she loved. "Congratulations," Mr. Nakamura said, bowing slightly to Jude. Your vision and persistence have made this partnership possible. Thank you, Jude replied, his arm around Charlie's waist. But I've learned that the best partnerships are built on more than just business. Mr. Nakamura smiled knowingly. Indeed, the greatest success means nothing without someone to share it with. As the reception wound down, Jude leaned close to Charlie. Are you free tomorrow evening? Charlie laughed. You know my schedule better than I do. Good. I'm taking you somewhere special. Dress casually. Should I be intrigued or worried? Charlie teased. Jude's eyes sparkled with a secret. Definitely intrigued. The following evening, Jude's driver took them to a part of the city Charlie knew well, the neighborhood where she'd grown up. When the car stopped in front of Millie's diner, Charlie turned to Jude in surprise. You brought me to Millie's? You mentioned you worked here through high school, Jude said. That it helped pay for your art supplies. Charlie hadn't realized he'd been listening so carefully. I spent 4 years serving burgers and milkshakes here. Inside, the diner was exactly as Charlie remembered. Vinyl booths, chrome fixtures, the scent of coffee and grilled onions in the air. What she didn't expect was to see her family waiting at a large corner booth. Max, her mother, and even Lily. What's going on? Charlie asked as they approached. Just dinner with family, Jude said innocently. The meal was filled with laughter and stories, many at Charlie's expense as her mother and Max shared tales of her teenage years. Jude listened intently, clearly filing away each new detail about the woman he loved. As they finished their dessert, Millie's famous apple pie, Jude excused himself briefly. Charlie thought nothing of it until the diner's lights dimmed and soft music began playing over the speakers. Jude returned, but instead of sitting down, he took Charlie's hand and guided her to stand. 90 days ago, I asked you to marry me for all the wrong reasons, he said, his voice carrying in the suddenly quiet diner. It was a business transaction, nothing more. Or so I thought. Charlie's heart began to race as she realized what was happening. What I didn't expect, Jude continued, was that you would change everything. You showed me that life isn't about contracts and mergers. It's about connection, compassion, and courage. All things you taught me just by being yourself. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, different from the one that had held their contract wedding rings. As he knelt before her, gasps and murmurs rippled through the diner. Our first marriage was built on convenience, Jude said, opening the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring surrounded by diamonds. I'm asking for our second to be built on love. Charlotte Bennett, will you marry me, for real this time? Tears filled Charlie's eyes as she recognized the ring. Is that my mother's? Jude confirmed. She left it for the person who made my heart feel like home. That's you, Charlie. It's always been you. Yes, Charlie whispered, then louder. Yes. As Jude slipped the ring onto her finger, replacing the diamond he'd given her for show, the diner erupted in applause. He stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a tenderness that spoke of promises kept and a future cherished. I love you, he murmured against her lips. No contracts, no conditions, just us. Their second wedding, held 3 months later in the botanical garden where Charlie's father had proposed to her mother, was everything their first was not. Warm, joyful, surrounded by people who genuinely cared for them. Jude's vows, spoken with uncharacteristic emotion, brought tears to even Lily's eyes. You found me when I wasn't looking, he told Charlie. You saw me when I was hiding. You loved me when I didn't know how to love myself. I promised to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that gift. 1 year later. The nursery walls were covered in murals. Scenes from Mia's Magical Paintbrush, Charlie's now best-selling children's book. She stood in the doorway, one hand resting on her rounded belly, watching as Jude assembled the crib with meticulous attention to detail. The instructions say this piece goes here, he muttered, frowning at the diagram. The billionaire CEO defeated by baby furniture, Charlie teased. Should I call your board of directors? Jude looked up with a grin. They wouldn't believe it. According to them, I've gone soft since I got married. Have you? Charlie asked, joining him on the floor. Completely. Jude set aside the instructions to place his hand over hers on her belly, and I couldn't be happier about it. The baby kicked against their joined hands, making them both laugh. "She's strong," Jude said proudly, "like her mother." "And stubborn," Charlie added, "like her father." Jude pulled Charlie gently into his arms, mindful of her pregnancy. "Did you ever imagine this is where we'd end up, when you agreed to my 90-day contract?" "Never," Charlie admitted. "But I wouldn't change a thing, not even the part where I was a cold, emotionally unavailable workaholic." Charlie pretended to consider. "Well, that part could have been shortened," Jude laughed, the sound free and unguarded in a way it never had been before Charlie. "I love you, Mrs. Stephen, and I love you, Mr. Stephen." Charlie rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Contract expired, but we're just getting started." As the afternoon sun filtered through the nursery windows, casting a golden glow over the room they'd created for their daughter, Charlie marveled at how a business arrangement had transformed into the greatest love story she could have imagined, one that would continue long after their original 90 days had ended.